Hey guys, Books Nelson here, back with another video, and today we're going to be talking about why the 2K League is shutting down and why it's a failure. But it's a tricky question because the 2K League, believe it or not, has been an abject failure from the very beginning of the 2K League. And we're going to break down why, because this is an element of 2K that affects everything to some degree, even though, as evidenced by the failure of the league, pretty much no one cares about the league. So before we answer the question, which we will right at the beginning of this video, of why the 2K League failed, we have to look at the fact that there are people in the 2K League, human beings in the 2K League, right, that put their time and effort and love into the game, into the league, and now they're going to have to redirect, and it's no laughing matter. It's a very unfortunate thing for those people. Now, that having been said, I think if anyone had their thinking cap on while they were getting into the 2K League, you should automatically, it's almost like when the web company started up way back in the early 2000s. You knew some of those web companies were just money drops for investors who knew nothing about web companies or anything like that. They were just like, everything web is new, here's $1 million. You needed to know to use that $1 million to platform yourself to something that would be long lasting. And the bottom line is, and this is just some Raptors uprising footage in the background. And this footage, I chose it for a particular reason. We'll get into it. But the reason you would have that look is because the 2K League from the very beginning was the worst esport in the history of esports. I say this with no exaggeration. There are indie games that showed up for a blip on the radar that had more success than the 2K League, right? Like, you can look at their Twitch numbers, all bots, because the chat isn't even moving, which is absolutely disgraceful. So why did it get to this state? Why is this such a failure? Well, A, is a terrible idea, executed poorly. Nobody wanted to watch it, right? So and when we say nobody, that's almost not an exaggeration. Because if you take out the people who knew the players, like friends, family members, the people who were directly supporting the league, the people who were involved, in terms of raw viewership, they had almost like intentionally bad viewer retention in terms of people who were like watching season 1 and then went to watch season 2. Almost zero of those people actually carried from season to season. And even those numbers that we're talking about, we're not even talking about numbers that compare to esports. We're talking about numbers that compare to individual content creators, right? Like, I'm not going to throw out numbers here because I want to keep everything above board. But long story short, nobody wanted to watch. So when the 2K League started out, they had a big problem. And it was that, number one, it was a very boring style of play to watch. And this is because the builder that they came up with was basically regulating the over-the-top stuff out of the game, right? So remember, 2K League launched, I remember how many years ago, but several years ago. And that version of the game was not a competitive version of 2K. It was just too nutty, and nobody wanted to be embarrassed by having a super cheesy version of basketball out there, right? With guys shooting from half court and, doing crazy looking dribble moves. So they came up with a very, very watered down version of the game, slapped a bunch of NBA sponsorship on top of it, got a bunch of esports jerseys, and they thought for some reason that would generate views. But the truth of the matter is, when it comes to esports, you have to listen to the viewers, not the other way around. And I don't mean you have to listen to their requests. I mean, you have to actually look at what viewers are interested in watching and seeing. You can't just say, we're going to come up with all of this stuff. This isn't television, right? You don't just come up with a show and you put it on. Because when TV does that, when people come up with a TV show, even if the show is supposed to be unique, the show is built upon successes of other TV shows that has reliable viewer feedback where they could say, well, we know people like this. There was no precedent for that for video game basketball. There was no form at the time that the 2K League was made for video game basketball to be something that people watched in very, very high numbers in the form of the esport. Now, individual content creators did have that, but at the time that this was created, it wasn't really a competitive thing. It was just the very beginning. People watched like dribble gods, but they were watching a lot for the personality, which is a key word here, right? They're watching a lot of personalities, a lot of combos, a lot of shining moments, a lot of things that weren't in the 2K League. The 2K League was trying to be this structured, real basketball, and there was no foundation for that. And it's not like the players were thinking of making an entertaining brand of basketball. See, when you do sports entertainment or esports entertainment, there's two ways you can go. You can go pure competition, right? Or you can go showmanship with competition, more like a WWE approach. Even though they're not trying to actually literally defeat each other in the matches, they are competing for the crowd, right? And there are versions of this historically in many forms of competition where, yeah, we're fighting or we're playing or whatever, but we're trying to put on a show. The closest comparison is actually And One, right? In And One, if you ever went to an And One game, it was actually competitive. It was not rigged or anything like that. They were trying to win. They were trying to show out. They would go to cities, and I believe they lost a game here and there, right? They wanted to win in these cities. They just wanted to look good while doing it. And that's the kind of crossover of between WWE and, say, UFC, right? Where they're genuinely trying to knock each other out. They literally don't care how boring it is. They'll just, grab you and hold you on the ground for 5 rounds. And if that gets the win, they're happy to do it. Now, the UFC has evolved from that, but I digress. So the 2K League didn't think about any of this. They only thought about what they want to do. And the problem with thinking about what they wanted to do is they did not have people on staff who knew anything about esports, right? And so for a moment, we're going to pause this very unentertaining gameplay that nobody watched, right? Like if you look here, Raptors Uprising, 14K subs, 46 views. Guys, I made this channel about 3 months ago. And if a video of mine did 46 views, I would be like, what happened? And I'm a brand new, relatively small My Team creator with a fraction, literally just about a tenth of their subscribers. And I haven't had a video go less than, 400 or 500 views. And I can't even remember. I don't even really look at my numbers that closely, but it's been nothing to this number. You're talking about 3 weeks ago. That's how, you're talking about literally nobody watching. This 46 views could just be the people who played in this game watching the footage back for review. And this wasn't some random game. This is a $160,000 tip-off tournament group play game. That means that none of these players and none of these teams have enough fans to get anywhere near a worthy investment. So when you want to look at why the 2K League fails, you can see it right here in this video, which is why I chose this video. This is a relatively recent video, right? But let me get you guys over here for a second. So in the background, this is CEO. Now, if you don't know what CEO is, it's fine. It means you're not a fighting game person. CEO is basically one of the many Street Fighter tournaments that happens. It's not the biggest tournament, but it is a pretty big one. It's considered a major, but it is now at the lower end of a major tournament, right? Almost between a regional tournament and a major, but still a really good tournament, really good show, but not the top. This isn't like now Street Fighter has $1 million tournaments, right? This is a tournament like old school, thousands of dollars, but players getting it in and fighting and qualifying for other tournaments, right? So just while I talk, look at this footage in the background. This is Punk, one of the greatest Street Fighter players in the world, versus DCQ, a Chinese Street Fighter player. And Punk here finishes wiggity washing this guy, right? Takes him out, pretty much done with him. And let's see if we can get right up to the end there. And so Punk, this is a non-competitive match where Punk just basically runs through the guy, right? So in a non-competitive match between one guy who's pretty well known, Punk is extremely well known, and another guy, a Chinese guy who's not well known. He's not a legacy Street Fighter player. But if you look here at the end of this match, again, as Punk makes short work of this guy, we can skip forward a little bit, get right to the end. So Punk wraps this guy up real quick in a non-competitive match. Handshake. Look at what's going on here, right? None of this is manufactured. This is genuine disappointment. Punk's not trying to fake his hype for beating this guy. The dude had no chance against him. He knew 100% he was going to. But look at the arena. Look at the genuine cheers. These guys are chanting Punk's name. If you watch, and there's something I want to point out here. Okay, so when we look at this going on, everybody in this crowd is genuinely invested in this. They're not paid actors, right? They're not fake hype. They're here because they love Street Fighter. They love tournaments. And you just can't fake this, right? You can't fake this stuff. The whole thing in the wrestling ring, it's because the guy who runs this tournament, Alex Jabali. So if you ever heard the term jabated, it comes from the fighting game community. Alex Jabali, when he would bait somebody, it would be called jabating them, right? That's where that term comes from. Jabali loves wrestling. He loves fighting games. And so he has that happen in the ring. I didn't show this to you guys, but before the guys come out, they have a whole entrance and everything like that. This is a real tournament. You cannot pay all of these people to be in your production. You need people who actually love the game and the esport and the competition and the personalities to want to come in. So if you guys don't know, Punk is also a content creator. So he has a mini cam in his hand. The commentators, who are fighting game legends, Yipes and Justin Wong, encouraged him, hey, make the content, get a picture of the crowd, get a picture of yourself. And when this kind of connectivity, this kind of like real talent, all of this stuff is genuine talent. Yipes, one of the greatest commentators ever to live, right? Justin Wong, probably the greatest American fighting game player of all time, I would say, right? They're doing commentary. These guys used to be rivals back in Marvel vs. Capcom days. And they actually talk about this here during the commentary. Why am I showing this to all of you guys? Because Street Fighter and Marvel vs. Capcom started with sweaty dudes in like basements fighting each other for pure pride because they love the game. And that is what builds the rest of your esport. Right? Like, yeah, the cameras are nice. The jerseys are cool. Some of the fighting game guys do have jerseys. I think Punk was wearing a jersey. Like, they have sponsorships now, right? You see the bright lights and all of this stuff. Yes, all of that stuff's really nice. But it doesn't happen unless there's real love for the game. And how do you get real love for the game? Well, you get real love for the game through genuine competition and through an audience that actually wants to see people compete. So I want to turn you guys' attention to something, and we're going to get to the core of why the 2K League fails. And I can sum it up in one video right now. If I put Ticino versus, we'll go to, let's go to Stizo. Ticino versus Stizo. Almost 1 million views. I'm just going to put that on. And so this is after the 2K League was created, right? This is when the 2K community was at its peak in terms of viewership. And the 2K League was so arrogant that they completely ignored this phenomenon. 2K went from guys like Chris Smooth and Shakedown and even Cash Nasty, individuals that people showed up for, to a genuinely competitive community, right? People were showing up to watch these wagers in the hundreds of thousands and even millions, right? Each of the personalities was hyped up, and the people, you see even the hype in the corner, like, you know, this is not like, yes, there's some entertainment going on, but people are genuinely invested, genuinely invested in these games, in these players' personalities at the time this came out. Did the 2K League capitalize on this? Did 2K capitalize on this? Did they care? No. They didn't care not one little bit. And bringing this over to the My Team community, the 250K tournament, which is so many dropped opportunities, yet there was more of an investment in that 250K than there was in the 2K League. By the audience, not by the people putting money into it, because 250K is not that much. It's paid to get the players out of there. Really not that big of an investment from 2K standpoint. The 2K League has much more money put into it. But the audience was much more invested in the 250K tournament. Why am I bringing that up? Because the 2K League partially failed because they said, we don't care what people want to watch. We don't care what the community's invested in. We don't care what you find entertaining. This is our league. We're going to do this our way. And you guys are going to watch it. And people didn't watch it. Year after year after year. We talk on this channel all the time about how much numbers come in. When you talk about the abysmal, brutal, disgraceful, embarrassing numbers that the 2K League had from the very first day, right? People might look at the early 2K League and be like, oh no, it had pretty good numbers. Not compared to a real esport. But you could say, well, it's new. That would be true, except for the fact that it only got worse and worse and worse. So people remember, most esports, when they start out, they don't have the NBA, which is what, the second biggest sport globally behind soccer, right? Behind the European leagues of soccer, it's the second biggest league, I guess you would say. And then you have the NBA 2K. Year after year, 2K is one of the top 10 selling games every single year. So when the 2K League comes out, it wasn't like it was just some random esport, right? They were supposed to come out to 100K views minimum, basically. You guys have so much marketing to throw behind this. You guys could have had Giannis Antetokounmpo tipping off the 2K League, right? Like, you literally had so much that you could have put into the league from a marketing standpoint that, of course, those first early numbers are not indicative of the product, because nobody knows what the product is. Once people found out what the product was, they immediately rejected it and said, we do not care about this. We do not care about the people. We do not care about the show you're putting on. We do not care about the skills. Now, part of that is the build of the game, which by now should have been way overhauled. They should not be doing the same thing that hasn't worked year after year, right? That's like, I don't know if that's arrogance or stupidity or ignorance, but it's something negative. It's some ints that leads up to a completely failed esport, right? Because you can't fail year after year after year and have your numbers not really growing. And more importantly, not having that genuine enthusiasm. Numbers you can fake, numbers you can stumble upon, but you cannot fake real engagement. And here's the thing about real engagement as we go back to the Street Fighter footage, right? The thing about real engagement is, look at these guys' faces, right? So Justin Wong, again, probably the greatest not Street Fighter player, but maybe the greatest American Street Fighter player, but certainly the greatest American fighting game player of all time. Justin is here doing commentary because he loves Street Fighter. He doesn't need the money. He's enjoying himself. He loves the game. And Yipes is, if you guys don't know who IFC Yipes is, watch any fighting game tournament and listen to this guy on the mic, and you'll hear the talent gap between him and the commentators for 2K. But listen to what I'm saying here. Talent, Justin Wong. Talent, Yipes. Talent, Alex Jabali. Punk, him being a content creator. Talent, personality. You have to go slower with an esport because you actually have to discover the talent that's in your community and the audience and the enthusiasm that talent brings to your community. You can't just slap jerseys on a bunch of random 2K players, say these guys are the best guys in the world, trust us, we said so, and then, okay, we're an esport now. We have fancy, we got lofts, we got, coaches and fit and wellness being coaches, and they visit the NBA facilities for some reason. And yeah, that's why this sport is great. No one cares about any of that stuff. They would rather watch Yipes fight Justin Wong in a 20-year-old Marvel vs. Capcom 2 game in a basement right now than watch your garbage esport. And it's not just the fact that it launched in such a state, because they didn't have people who really knew anything about esports running their esport, right? Because you think about all of the money involved. Here's the thing about really rich people. Really rich people are never wrong about anything, right? Because they're rich. So all of their decisions have led up to them being rich. So when you go up to them and you say, hey, you're wrong about something, you have to have a genuine expertise about what you're saying in a way that humbles them if they're not that kind of humble person already. Some rich people are already humble, right? But by and large, when people are really rich and they're doing a venture like this, they're not inclined to listen to you unless you have as much money as they do. The problem is esports wasn't making the kind of money where there were that many people that they could get in there. So they would have had to get people who just knew about esports in the formation of the 2K League to tell them, hey, you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong, you're doing that wrong. And here's the problem with that. When you start a new venture, everybody's fighting for power. Everybody's fighting for control and credit. And so when you have a civil war over control, let's throw on some more of this boring 2K footage so you guys can see why this failed. But when you have an internal competition for clout and ego, someone who knows more about stuff than you is a threat to your ego. So the arrogance that's dripping off the 2K League is why the 2K League deserved to die. This was never, ever, ever, ever going to be successful. Anyone who knew anything about 2K and esports and just entertainment in general could name 10, 20 things wrong with what they were doing. They didn't get the production talent. They didn't get the commentary talent. They didn't get the art talent. They had a bad build, right? They ignored when 2K had the opportunity to truly make an esport, and they do again now. If you look at the Joe Knows stuff, which I'll bring up as well, and actually I don't want to leave without talking about this, but at the time that the Ticino stuff happened, they should have been saying, oh, there's something about this that we need to capture. They just said, that's cute. They're getting 1 million views while we're getting negative 1 million views. Who cares? No big deal. I mean, just absolutely ridiculous. So we'll just click on one of these videos with Joe Knows here. So I actually did an interview with Chalk when he didn't make it into the 2K League, because he was talking about how it was rigged and all this other stuff. And my thing was, of course, there's politics involved. I don't think the process is literally rigged, because that implies a structure that's not there. But I said the most important thing to understand, and this is on video, you guys can find it, did the interview with Brian Mizzi, is that you guys need to not worry about the 2K League. You need to worry about your own leagues. These are pretty much my exact words. You need to worry about your own leagues and your own talent, because if you guys are competitive with the 2K League and you're getting more views than the 2K League, they have to submit to you. Because, going back to the original point of all of this, you can't fake enthusiasm, right? It's like Gladiator. The crowd decides who the winner is. You don't win the fight, you win the crowd, right? That's what esports is all about, getting people to view, spectator culture. And if we look here, 2K actually does have an esport right now, and it's a pretty good esport. It's just native to the actual game, and it's these WR leagues. Plenty of people watch these guys play. In fact, I would say more people watch Bear the Beast playing Pro-Am on his own channel than they do when he plays in the 2K League, which is absolutely just like, if you could figure out how to define failure, but the test was you had to use an esport to do it. Bear the Beast is a great example, because it's the same person playing basically the same way with the same personality, but by himself, with no money. He's more successful than you guys are, with billions of dollars behind you in the form of the NBA subsidizing this league. If you want to talk about incompetence, that's like Olympic gold medal Michael Phelps level of incompetence, right? My neck is hurting because I've won so many gold medals in the incompetence category. That's what the Bear the Beast thing is. And to a degree, the Joe Knows thing is. Now, Joe Knows is a great example of another failure of the 2K League, because Joe Knows is a personality who turned into a competitor. What a novel idea. Some of the people who already have the biggest eyeballs in the world on them, or the most amount of eyeballs in the world on them, are turning into competitive people. Wouldn't it be interesting if that was a model we use for success, instead of us trying to manufacture personalities? Corporations are not good at manufacturing personalities. Personalities are just attached to actual living and breathing human beings that have something about them that people want to watch, right? But if you're arrogant enough, you think you're God, and you think, you know what, I'm going to turn, and I'm not going to name any individuals, but I'm going to turn this person into a personality, or that person into a personality. And that's just not the way the world works, particularly when you actually have to get people's time and attention. No matter how much money you have, you still have to earn people's time and attention, right? When you have a lot of money, there's a lot of things in the world you don't have to earn, but you absolutely have to earn. No matter how broke somebody is, you still have to pay for their time. You still have to pay for their attention. So you can't just manufacture things like personality and competition and greatness in entertainment without actually caring about what people want to see. And the 2K League never cared about what people wanted to see. The 2K League only cared about what it wanted people to see. And that, for me, concludes why the 2K League was a failure. Let me know what you guys think of this whole 2K League thing. People are going to bring up gambling, controversies and stuff like fake vaccine cards or whatever. Guys, none of that stuff matters because the millions of people who don't watch the 2K League don't know about any of that stuff. That's the entire point. Nobody knows about any controversies going on in the 2K League because nobody watches. You can't have controversy if you're anonymous. You have to be known to have controversy. Controversy is the privilege of the famous, right? Like either you were famous or you become famous because of your controversy. If you're as anonymous and unknown as the 2K League, that's just something that happened, right? So, if somebody stole your stapler at the office, that's not a controversy unless your name is Kim Kardashian. Then that's a famous stapler now. Otherwise, it's just something that happened at a random office, which happens every day. And so the same thing is true of all of these 2K League controversies or whatever. They're not really controversies. That's just stuff that happened in the 2K League that nobody cares about. If something happened with Joe Knows, they care about that because they care about Joe Knows, which they show by the millions of views that he gets on a regular basis. And these videos, the interesting thing about these videos is they're only competition. That's it. There's nothing else to these videos. It's not like this is some kind of build up to a build video or, he's putting some like insane commentary on it. It's just competition in a way that the 2K League should have utilized at some point to not be the greatest failure in the history of esports, probably never to be repeated unless they do another 2K League. So I'm not personally upset at the 2K League because I don't have any personal investment in the 2K League. I knew it was going to be a failure from the very beginning. And people who know me have heard me say that. And I've spoken about this on the internet, by the way. It's not like when I was on the At Me Bro Show channel, we talked about this before. People were like, haha, man, you trolling. I'm like, I'm not trolling. This is horrible. And it's going to end horribly. And everything that looks good about this league is fool's gold based on the fact that they have the NBA backing it. Nothing about other good esports is present in this league. So I'm not upset about it. It's more like, it's just amazing to see something done so very, very, very poorly when there are so many smart, well-funded entities involved in it. So it's always interesting to watch really, really smart people fail as colossally bad as if they've had their house cat try to create an esport, which is basically what the 2K League was. If you had your house cat create an esport by spinning a wheel and having esport things on the wheel, it probably do as well or no worse than the 2K League actually did. So for me, no controversy, nothing to see here. I'm personally glad it's dead because now maybe 2K has a chance of getting a good esport, which I will close this out by talking about the 250K tournament real quick. There's so much potential for the 250K tournament. All 2K has to do is A, number one, bring it back. B, they need some sort of regulations that allow the tournament to be competitive. You cannot be gambling for your team because that's just not competitive, right? That's pay to win. And you don't want that. That's not going to work with an esport because it ruins the integrity. People want to see the best versus the best. And at the core of any competition is knowing that, everybody has a chance to win except for their skill, right? And if it's that, let's say they're all playing and Splash randomly pulled Dark Matter, they do it early in the year. Let's say Splash randomly pulls Opal Wemby and Ty doesn't get a good center. You just know Ty doesn't have a chance to win if he doesn't pull that center. So they have to have a way for it to be competitive. But now that the 2K League is gone, hopefully 2K feels more comfortable about reinvesting into their own esports culture. Because remember, the 2K League is not actually a 2K League. It's an NBA league. 2K is just a partner for the 2K League. 2K doesn't have its own esport. 2K does not participate. In fact, after 250K, that basically marked the end of 2K doing their own esport. So now, hopefully, with the death of this stinky, terrible dog poo league gone, we'll see 2K go back into the fray as an esport and have a chance to be successful in that arena, which I think is ultimately good for the 2K community because whenever you have a successful esport, the best and the best get together and you get to see what the game really is like at the highest level, which is very difficult in 2K because even with the 2K League, the problem was they didn't have, they were playing on a different build. So it wasn't as, directly relevant. And that's the problem with my team right now is without a serious My Team competition, there's no way to watch the best of the best. And so you don't get those trickle down debatable things of like, or should I say undebatable things, where you can say to the devs, hey, listen, in a tournament for $500,000, this person used this cheesy tactic, you got to get it out the game. And the devs can agree because that is, unchallengeable evidence, right? You can't even debate that evidence unequivocally. Okay, that we saw the best players in the world. They're doing something that's not healthy for the game. That's on us. We'll fix it either this year or next year. And it really helps your game develop. So, and also it just creates hype for the game too, creates community for the game, which I think is ultimately a good thing. I think people coming together to watch and enjoy a game is ultimately a great thing. And once again, I'll turn back to the Street Fighter footage and we'll get out of here with this. But as you can see here, I want these emotions for the 2K community. And now with the 2K League out of the way, leaving a fart cloud in its wake, hopefully we can get it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks as always for supporting the channel. Please like and subscribe if you have not already, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.